So I'm sure you all are very good with numbers, but that's just not sufficient as far as financial planning is concerned. There is much more things to it which we need to look at, and that is what we are going to discuss today in greater detail. So I'll just start with my screen sharing, and we'll take that. Right, the screen is visible.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. So yes, so what we are going to discuss today is more like an overview of what financial planning is, because it is a very, very vast subject, and it may even require a day or day, maybe two less either, to really discuss on this topic. However, I will give you a brief overview on what really is financial planning and how you as students or as budding professionals or FCAs, future chartered accountants, can really make good use of this, and even probably look as a career option among all the finance. So John Rockefeller, the first billionaire of the world, he was asked, how much money is enough money? And he replied, just a little more. So the need and the greed for money for each one of you, I'm sure, is never ending, and we all aspire to have a little more with each passing day. So we have a car, say maybe a Civic. So we may want to upgrade into a Mercedes or a BMW or an Audi. So the needs always keep increasing. So we need to have a right frame of mind and a right balance as far as financial planning is concerned, because even the billionaires feel that even they need a little more. So we somewhere need to be content with what we have and not overdo or take such actions which may not be in the best interest of ours. So a human mind has a great ability to adapt to things. And the recent crisis, the COVID crisis, is the best example for this, for us to understand that how the human mind can adapt to things. So we have seen this times of difficulty where we have gone through various stages of emotional changes in our mind. When the COVID crisis had really begun, we had seen that there was a disbelief that what really is it, COVID, what really is COVID, whether it will really impact us, because the early roots of this COVID were visible way back in December 2019. However, whether it will come to India, if it will come, whether one case, two case, to what extent will it impact us, which was followed by anger among all of us with the first lockdown happening in March, and slowly the life changing for each one of us to sadness. And once the unlock down had started, so things really started to, we really started accepting things as it came. And further today, we are sitting at an optimism. I think we'll just see who is this. I think somebody from the HR team can just check. I think Hiren Chang or somebody is doing this. Yeah, thank you. Right. Right. So we are probably in the stage 4 or 5 where we have started accepting things as they are coming, and that COVID is here to stay until a vaccine really comes out, and slowly we are looking forward for a better life ahead of us, where we will be overcoming all these situations in a much brighter manner. So we need to really get ready to face all these challenges and get prepared for the future. So similarly is a financial planning process, right? We don't know what is going to happen to us 20 years down the line, or once we become chartered accountants, whether our needs will increase, whether our responsibilities will increase, whether there is a need that will arise for us to have a higher money requirement. So whether that can be well illustrated through a financial plan. So that is what is the real objective. When one has done a good financial planning done early in his career, half the things are done. So one needs to really plan for that in advance. So we've all seen this famous serial, right? Kaun Banega Crorepati. Everyone wants to be that, right? But do we also know some stories which happen behind that? A best case example is, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the guy who became the first crorepati. He had Mr. Sushil Kumar. He had almost 1 2 3 crores or 5 crores odd amount, but within a time span of less than 2 years he had almost become bankrupt. The simple reason for that is he had not seen that kind of money in his life ever. And having seen that, you tend to have a different zone for yourself altogether, where you take decisions which may not be in the best interest of yours, or the risk appetite increases because you feel that, oh, you have so much of money, you can very well take that kind of risk and achieve that. So the point is not to indulge into things which may not be in our comfort zone, or the risk for taking those things may be much higher than what we anticipate. Similar examples we have seen. So this is some example which is of course behind the scenes and available in public media, but uh, Sushil Kumar was one such example. So we have other examples like Mr. Vijay Mallya, Anil Ambani, the fate of Jet Airways, Satyam, and all these people, we know what really are they going through. So they are still struggling. So the reason why they are struggling is not having a good financial plan, or not taking the risk in mind while taking their decisions pertaining to investments. So when Kingfisher was doing very well, of course, it was probably like it is the best airlines with all the world class facilities etc available. Anil Ambani, when he had launched Jio, the mobile phone with 299 or Karlo Muthi Mein kind of thing. So these are the times when they were doing very well. But what went wrong? So those things which went wrong for them are something which decisions which were taken which were not really very well considered, because of which they are where they are today. So these things are very important to be considered while taking decisions. So the agenda for today, what we are going to discuss is, financial planning, an overview as to what is financial planning, why we need it. So insurance planning, investment planning, tax planning, retirement and estate planning. These are three subcomponents of financial planning. So financial planning is a broader terminology which is used. These three are the subsets of financial planning, which we will be discussing in greater detail, followed by a Q&A session. So what really is financial planning? So financial planning is nothing but using the proper and disciplined approach to money management. So, I was asked whether I really need a financial plan. Of course, you need it. And whether we are doing it that in our day-to-day lives, of course, we are doing it in some or the other form, which we may not know or call it a proper financial plan. The best case example is planning for a vacation. So planning an overseas vacation is, of course, something which we all aspire for, and we all budget for that, right? We do some small savings in bits and pieces to really make it happen. So that budgeting, ensuring that we plan for it, say 1 year from today, so we start making cumulative savings of small amount which can help us achieve that amount which is required to go for a trip. Similarly, our parents do it in some or the other form. So a mother plans for her ration expenses or the maid expenses well in advance to the due date. Similarly, our fathers plan for the EMI or our education expenses, or we planning to study abroad. So these are some form of financial planning which we are doing in our day-to-day lives. So it can be pertaining to anything, right? So here, what we will be talking more on financial planning is a broader aspect on how we can use our current resources, invest it well, such that our financial goals can be well achieved. So financial goals can be like, many. So having a Audi or a BMW, having a good asset or a bungalow at maybe Lonavala or some XYZ place, a beach vacation, marrying a girl of choice, studying for higher education, having a well settled retired life. So these are some things, which we all aspire for and which we all want as early as possible, right? But whether it is possible, of course it is possible. How can we make it possible? So there are some things in life which matter and some things which are controllable, right? Saving the right amount of money for achieving a particular purpose is something that is in your control. And why it matters? Because you want to achieve that goal. So that is a right mix where you decide, okay, I need to save this amount of money for achieving this particular goal. And really doing that can help you go a long way in achieving what you want. So that is where you need to really focus on in achieving things that you want. So there are things which are controllable in nature and there are certain things which are uncontrollable in nature. So most people actually look at things, in my experience, is which is uncontrollable, right? Say inflation, the stock market return, or real estate prices. So I have clients who say that I have invested 10 years back, but the prices are not really going up, or I'm not getting the desired return. What do I really do about it? So that is something which is beyond your control, and a demand supply or a market economics will play its role to really decide what is the fate of that. So it's not a good idea to really look at things which are uncontrollable. Similarly, there are often representations made before the government on the tax hikes, or similar things where the individual, of course, as association, need to make that representation. But whether the government considers that or not considers that is something beyond your control. So why look at those things which are uncontrollable? Let's look at things which are in your control, which you can do something about and work on that, instead of complaining of the other part of the things. So how much you spend, how much you save, where you invest, in what manner you invest. So say career decision, why doing a CA may be a good choice for you. It may be out of interest, it may pay you very handsomely, or there could be some other reasons why you're looking as CA as a career choice, or anything that you choose to. So studying abroad, so why just restrict yourself to CA? You may want to study overseas. So what kind of savings you need to do, what kind of loan requirement if you need, whether it is possible. So those kind of things are something which a investor, or anybody for that matter, should look at, because that is something in their control. So these are some basic tips that I thought I would want to share with all of you, who are budding students. So students who are looking, of course, I know most of you are already doing CA course, which is probably the cheapest in India. But if you are planning for an overseas MBA or some other course abroad, you need to really realize that all these come at a very high cost. You need to have a security to really get that loan, because it's not the case otherwise, as in Western countries where you can get a loan without a security. We tend to overspend on books. So I as a student used to borrow books from library and not really buy them, because I had that preference. I didn't want to spend that kind of money on buying textbooks. Similarly, you can, think of building an emergency fund, small savings. You may all be getting some form of pocket money or some allocation of funds from your parents. How do you really utilize it so that you can build some emergency fund or some corpus in case a need arises? Having a basic budget in place, that is also something which is very important. So we may all be getting some form of stipend. Maybe it's, I know, a nominal figure that you may all be talking of, which may go into our expenses, but still having a budget to how you can better utilize it, whether you can cut down on your expenses in terms of traveling, or if you can cut down in some expenses in form of consumption of things that you do. So having a basic budget, see, if you have a budget in place, okay, you can really allocate into different baskets of your choice. So once you prepare that, you have a more clarity of thought as to what can be really done. It's good to avoid impulsive buying, because we also do that, because we may get attracted to something and we may want to buy it So we do get impulsive as far as those decisions are concerned. Credit cards are something which are very common, and we use it left, right, center. So we need to really be cautious about using those and keeping the debt levels, as low as possible. So these are some tips which I thought may be good for each one of you. So coming to the first aspect of financial planning, which is insurance. So insurance or risk management is something which I believe is the core of financial planning. Why I say that is because insurance is to deal with protection, or insurance is to do with security and safety. So what really happens is that, once you start earning a particular amount, say 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs per annum for your family, or as a contribution to your house expenses, there needs to be a security for your family, because they get habituated with that kind of a lifestyle. Because say you are contributing 20,000 or 30,000 towards house expenses or your personal needs, we all, our family gets dependent on that, right? That okay, my son is going to contribute or my daughter is going to contribute so and so, uh, so and so kind of a corpus on a every month basis because of the salary that he earns. But what really happens if there is a case of any eventuality where, a person is no more, right? Accidents do happen, unfortunate incidents do happen. So what really can be a substitute for that? So, we as finance students need to really understand and really take cognizance of this fact that term insurance is something which we all must have. I say on day one, when you start earning any form of income, you must have a term insurance for the maximum possible amount that you can get at that point. So typically, it ranges from 10 to 20 times of the annual income for any individual to get a term insurance. So, rupees 50 per day is hardly any cost that we are looking at for a coverage of almost like a 1 crore. So it provides a basic foundation so that, you know, uh, in our absence tomorrow, our family does not have to depend on anybody, for that matter, for that alternate source of income which we were providing to them. So term insurance among that is the best option, which in my opinion, a person or a student or somebody who starts working, or even your parents for that matter, because see, a father is working, and if a mother is a housewife, so in the absence of a father who's a bread earning member of the family, what happens if in case he is no more? So there has to be an alternate source of income to the family, because you're used to a certain lifestyle. It can't be, you can't get rid of that overnight, right? You need some alternate source to really compensate you for that. So I, in my opinion, term insurance is something which is the best and which provides the right foundation to the insurance, while there are other types, endowment and so on, whole life. But it's not recommended in nature, because it's more of a investment and an insurance combination. Whereas insurance, the purpose of insurance is to provide security in the absence of the bread earner of the family, right? So that gets defeated when you do not have a term insurance and some other type of insurance, though that also provides some kind of insurance, but it is not worth the return that we are expecting from that investment, right? It is more like, I will get some assured amount at the end of the policy period if I survive, but the return that is associated with that investment may not be worth it. So it may not be really a good idea to look at that. So, it's a very huge and a very interesting opportunity for all of you, if you want to really career even insurance as an career, because the penetration levels in India is still very, very low. So even only 36 crore people, Indians, are insured today, and we can see in terms of percentage as well, so it's very, very low. And of course, there are two aspects to this, life and non-life. So life is considered like a term insurance. So as long as you are alive, you need to pay the premium, but if something happens to the person who's taking the policy, the family gets the benefit of that person in lump sum. Whereas in non-life, it is typically a case where medical expenses are taken care of. So that is something additional which, in my opinion, one must have, because we have seen in such COVID crisis scenarios that, the hospital bills are as high as 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, even for a stay of 15 days, 20 days. So what you really do. I have seen that, savings of people for generations have altogether gone due to the hospital expenses that has been there. And at such times you don't really think whether investment is more important or saving the life of a person in the hospital is important. So that kind of things really happen, and I have seen it. So medical and term insurance is something which each one of you as an individual or as a family must have in place for an adequate amount. Sometimes people go for the least amount of coverage in the hope that it is the least expensive, of course, because the coverage is less. But is it worthwhile? Of course not. So that adequate planning must be done in terms of having a right term insurance coupled with medical insurance. So together, I would say that we can reach out to as many people or families as possible and make them aware. It's not that okay, you buy it through me or through somebody else, but at least the point is we must make them aware that this is something like this which is available in the market, which can secure you or your family for a certain amount of coverage over their life. So that is something which we must educate them and ensure that they have it as part of their planning. So guys, this is one question. I think if we can just enable the chat box, I would like to understand, so inflation for the last 25 years by the government declaration is around 7%. But any idea what is the actual inflation which is applicable to you and me, or, people who are living a normal lifestyle and not below the poverty line? So can we have some responses or rough guesses on the uh, number? What inflation do you estimate it to be?
I've opened the chat box. So
Okay. So any rough guess estimates that I can have some responses? I can't see the responses. Are the responses visible?
yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of numbers are we getting at? So 4 to 6%, 9, 2 to 6, 4, 5. Right. So, guys, the actual number, as per the estimate, we can disable it.
Yeah.
So the actual number, which is right. So the actual number is close to 12%, and that is the kind of inflation that we are all living in. So 3 to 6%, or 2 9. I think the closest was 9. The actual number is around 12% plus. So unless somebody is beating that kind of a number, as far as their investments are concerned, you are actually consuming a part of your investment. So right, our say 100, the महंगाई जो है वो महंगाई 12% से बढ़ रही है, whereas the government is just declaring 7. So it's not true for us. So the kind of expenses or the lifestyle that we are living, that is growing at 12%. So whatever we do in form of savings or whatever other things that we have planned as far as our investments are concerned, that is a benchmark number that you must at least achieve. Anything above that, of course, is a win-win as far as growth and investment is concerned. Otherwise, you are just matching the lifestyle by having your investments grow at 12%. So that is something which we all must consider, because in short term we don't realize the benefit or the impact which an inflation creates, but it's only with time that it eats your savings. So these are the some factors which we have considered while taking a 12% inflation calculation. So right from airfare or banquet cost, studying abroad, the Indian properties at what rate it has grown, and the club membership. So these are something where a major part of our expenses may go. Food is a very minimal part of all this. So the inflation number, which is actually declared by the government, which is around 6 to 7%, there the assumption is that 50% of our income is towards food items. So that is not true for you and me, right? So suppose a person is earning a 50,000 or a lakh of rupees per month, he is not spending 50% of that amount towards food items. So it does not hold true for you and me, right? So we have other lifestyle need and our other lifestyle expenses which need to be met, and that is what we are talking of. So that is growing at 12%. And mind it, this is of course without looking at upgradation. So say today we are traveling in a train for a vacation, we all aspire that we want to travel in economy class in a flight, or right, if we are traveling today in an economy class flight, we all want to travel in the first class or a premium class aircraft, right? So these are some of the things which we all aspire for, and needs and lifestyle upgrades are something which we all are looking for. So what needs to be done for really planning for that? So this is one just example on how somebody who would have invested 1 crore at a risk-free rate. So typically in a FD or PPF or similar kind of instruments where you would have got typically a 6-7% or even an 8% return, whereas 12%, what is the kind of money that you should have at least created to meet the lifestyle? So investing risk free over 25 years could actually destroy 70% of your wealth. So you are actually consuming, मतलब आप जितना आपने saving किया है आप उसी में से आपके खर्चे चला रहे हैं, and there will be a point in time where the savings will get zero and you will not have anything to live on, right? So that is the whole point to be understood when we are talking of inflation. Coming to the second aspect is the investment options. So what are the investment options typically available for an individual? So these are the 5 broad asset classes that are available. So traditionally in India, just to give some statistics, in the US, 80% of the investments are into financial assets. When I say financial assets, it's more like equity, gold, mutual funds. It's more like that. Whereas 20% is in non-financial assets, just like a real estate, where you can touch, see, feel, kind of an experience. So that will form part of non-financial assets or real assets. So that is the trend in US, right? But as far as India is concerned, it's other way. In India, 80% of the investments are in real estate real estate or real assets where you can touch, see, and feel. People like to really keep it close to their heart, or they want to see, अच्छा हाँ मेरा यहाँ पे एक प्रॉपर्टी है, मुझे दिखता है जहाँ से मुझे इनकम आती है और वो कोई लेके नहीं जा सकता, कोई चोरी नहीं कर सकता, so that kind of an attitude people have as far as Indian savings are concerned. So the trend will eventually change to what it is in the US, because in the US in the early 90s that was the trend as well. So 80% in the US in early 1900 was more towards real estate and real assets, whereas today it's the other way. 2080 has really swapped up. So similar thing is something which will happen as far as India is concerned. The financial savings of people will is slowly moving from real estate and gold and other real assets into financial assets. So fixed deposit of course is a component which is close to people's heart, and traditionally people just want to park their money into PPFs or fixed deposit because they know that there is no volatility involved in that. But we have seen, right, how inflation impacts us as far as our savings are concerned. So growing that money at 7-8% will not do any justice, right? Especially with the falling interest rate. So Indian GSEC is dropping to close to 5%, whereas in the US it's close to zero. So that is the reason the gold rally which recently took place. I'm sure some of you may be tracking, and it's the talk of the town that in the last few months since the COVID or the lockdown started, the gold has really rallied. So the real reason for that is because US, the 10-year GSEC where they used to invest, which used to fetch 2.5% till December 19, is giving just a 0% return today. So they don't have an alternate choice. They just want to store the money. They are not looking at any return on that. So gold has become like a store of value to generate return. So traditionally, so an option available to investors. So first thing is fixed deposit PPF. So we all know that it's giving 7-8% and it's taxable at the maximum marginal rate. So uh, that is something which is available. Second popular choice among most of the Indians is that real estate. हाँ मेरा एक property यहाँ है, एक property वहाँ है. Though it is not giving any return, but मुझे कुछ rent आ रहा है. But if we sit down and do the calculations, we all know the returns of the real estate sector in the last 8-10 years. So and of course the biggest tragedy or drawback for real estate is it is illiquid in nature. The third thing is gold. Gold traditionally has been giving 8-9% kind of return, but it's more to do with again Indian mentality, especially in the southern India. Gold is considered very auspicious and good, so they like to have it in larger quantity. The fourth is equity. Equity is something which people are not really comfortable with. The simple reason is it involves volatility, but we will come to that, what really is volatility, how we can really mitigate it. But equity is something which I would highly advocate as finance students, as finance professionals, as a person who's starting early, must have a major component of their savings into equity. Mutual fund is one of the means of investing into equity. Again, within that there are various options like equity and debt. However, it is more tax efficient in nature compared to FDs as far as debt is concerned. So I'm sure most of you would have come across this in their tax syllabus, that how debt mutual funds are more tax efficient compared to fixed deposits. Right. So now we are talking of what really is asset allocation and why it is so important. So this slide which is front of you, this is basically a pioneer study done by three professors of the University of Chicago early in the early 1900, that how the returns are really made for any investor. And they did this study for almost more than 80 large US pension fund houses. So the largest of the funds in the world, and top 80 of those, they did a study on how they are really making that return. So they realized that more than 92% of the return decisions of theirs is affected by something called as asset allocation. So investing into real estate, investing into gold, and investing into debt. uh, 5% of the decision is affected by security selection. So whether you're buying Infosys, whether you're buying Reliance Industries, you're buying some other company shares, and the 2% of the decisions is about timing it. When to buy. You can buy it today, you could have bought it 1 year later, or you can buy it 1 year from now. So that really is some breakup or components of how and why asset allocation is important and how returns are derived. So asset allocation plays the maximum impact, more than 92%, which unfortunately, how it works. I will give you some examples. So typically what happens, a person has a saving of 1 crore, he will have 80 lakhs or 90 lakhs into FDs or PPF or the traditional debt instruments, and 10 lakhs into say equity. So on a portfolio of 1 crore, if I have to take a 7% return on the 90 lakhs, it's going to be marginal. While on 10%, even if that doubles, it will have the least kind of an impact on the overall portfolio of 1 crore. So what one needs to understand is that how that 1 crore is growing, and how it is going. So not the only 10 lakh which is invested into equity, or only the balance component. So that right framework on a weighted average basis has to work in your favor to make things really right, and that is what we call asset allocation. So within asset allocation, so like we were saying, so mutual funds is something which I feel is something which you can all look at. The simple reason for that is the volatility involved in mutual fund compared to direct equities is much lesser. So there are various parameters which are involved in selecting mutual funds, right? So typically we look at funds which are top quartile. So we divide it into four broader aspects in terms of return, as far as return is concerned, and select the funds which are in the top quartile. It's a myth that all mutual fund deliver return. So even the top, so typically investors look at कि यार एक साल में सबसे अच्छा किसने किया या 3 साल में सबसे अच्छा किसने किया, just rank it on some order and select the one which has delivered the highest return. But it's a myth among people that the one which has delivered the highest return in the last 1 year or 3 years will continue to do that in the next 3 years. तो होता क्या है कि it's in fact the other way. The fund which has done the best in the last 1 year or 3 years delivers the least amount of returns. So it's a myth among people that all mutual funds deliver the same return. So even if I have to give you one more statistic, it is the difference between a large cap mutual fund. The gap between the highest and the bottom most mutual fund performance return difference is it's close to 8 to 10%. And if you go that to lower towards mid cap and small cap, the difference is as high as 15 to 20%. So you need to be very careful as far as selection of mutual funds are concerned. So mutual funds can be a very good way of achieving the financial goals that we want. Of course, a careful study is required in choosing the right mutual fund with a personalized approach, because it's not one scheme will fit all, right? Each one has a different need, different horizon for investment. So one needs to really carefully examine and consider which is the right mutual fund for them. So SIP is something which is something which you can all look at, just like a stipend which comes to you on a monthly basis, or our parents may be earning a salary or a business where you get a regular cash flow on a monthly basis. SIP is a mechanism in which you can do your investments in a systematic way on a monthly basis. So it's more like a discipline which is brought into your life to do your investments. Typically our parents in the early days used to do some investments into recurring deposits or similar investments where they used to invest some particular amount every month, such that a corpus is created over time. So SIP is one such thing which is available for investors and which they must have as far as their investments are concerned into mutual funds. So within that you can have into debt, into equity, or some other thing, but it is something where you can have a mechanism to invest in a systematic way. So typically, say if you're earning a stipend of 5,000 or 10,000, you can invest in a mode of SIP with as low as rupees 100. So that is something which can be a journey, because it's all about starting with a discipline in the right manner, which can really help you grow your money. So it is a more disciplined way of investing, and it helps you buy even when the market is going up or it's going down, right? So even if when the market is up, because you don't know when the market will be up, so you may buy less of that. When the market is low, you're buying more of that. So that it is considered as one of the most efficient and good mechanisms as far as investments are concerned. So how it really works is that every month a specified amount is auto debited from the investor's account. With technology, things are becoming very very easy and convenient. So every month a particular amount that you decide based on your discussion with a financial planner or your choice, units are allotted basis the amount that you have invested, and a daily NAV is published, so you can track as to how your investments are doing, and you can redeem or switch out of that as and when you wish to do so. For example, if you've invested say for a period of 1 year, and your horizon is completed for which you have done the investment, you can withdraw a part of that money, or say you may have some alternate source of income by that time. When you needed that money after 1 year, you can withdraw a part of that. So that kind of an options are available for investor who does such an investment into mutual funds. And every investment is a new investment, so exit load, and these are some things which are applicable if you withdraw your money within a period of 1 year. So this is a classic case example where Ramesh, Mahesh, and Suresh, they are three friends, and all of them were fortunately pursuing CA. Ramesh, who took multiple attempts, he took almost 3 attempts to qualify as a chartered accountant. Mahesh took two, and Suresh fortunately qualified in the very first attempt. But we can see that how they all started together, took multiple attempts for becoming a chartered accountant. They all started with a saving of rupees 5,000. They said that okay, चलो हम सभी लोग मिलके 5,000 rupees का investment करते हैं every month for next 10 years. and let us see what really happens at the age of 60. So here we have assumed that even if somebody had got a return of 12%, how Ramesh, who started at the age of 25, is able to create a corpus of 1.8 crore vis-a-vis Suresh, though qualified in the very first attempt, but he was so busy with his job that he did not have really a time to plan for his finances well. Ended up at the age of 60 just having a corpus of 57 lakhs. So this is the kind of a difference which can be created when you start early. So when I say you can start at 100 rupees, it's about making that attempt in the investment journey to start. And once you start, of course, you inculcate the habit, you see that the returns are growing or it is better than a bank FD, and you slowly start taking those decisions which can help you really build a corpus for yourself. And mind it, matlab, it can be done well with the help of asset allocation between debt and equity. So it's not necessary that everything that you're investing is going into equity or is going to be subject to risk. Of course, you can invest in a SIP mode for a debt as well, so which will give you a fixed return. So early start is very very important. So in spite of Ramesh taking multiple attempts, he had all the time to decide and think. Okay, I need to start savings for my retirement, such that I have a decent corpus. So that kind of an impact really happens when you start early. So like I said, the key rules for investing is having an early start, being disciplined with your investment. So investing on a monthly basis, matlab, I've seen people saying that okay, I'm investing for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but once there is a crisis like COVID, or there is any global event which happens and market falters for whatever reason, people get panic as to whether they should sell their investments or whether they are doing which is something wrong. So it's not about that, it's all about keeping patience, and we will come in the later slides as to how much money can be made by staying invested. So you would have heard of this Chinese bamboo tree story, where you know where for 5 years together, if a person has sowed the seeds of Chinese bamboo tree, there is no development at all in growth. So you really have a question in your mind whether the tree is going to really come out, or whether it is dead, or is there something which I have done wrong in the whole process. So that really is a question which comes to the mind of a person when the person grows or sows the seed of a bamboo tree. But it is only at the end of 5 years that a person realizes that the tree and sprout that he has grown can even has grown by 90 feet in a just time span of 6 weeks. So for 4 to 5 years, it has not done anything, and at the end of fifth year, it is growing by 90 feet. Mind it, it's 90 feet. So you and I, so I'm more like a 6 feet. So I'm sure you can imagine the height it has created for itself in a short time span of 6 weeks, and growing by 90 feet. So similar is the game of investing. So for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you may feel that mm, what is really happening, whether my investments are really going to grow at the number that I'm looking at. I'm just investing 5,000, whether I will reach that 1.7 crore figures which others have done, whether my investments will give that return. So it is about keeping that patience and doing what is right. So you need to keep watering it, you need to keep investing it, and once that 3 year, 4 year, 5 year period is done of your investing, you will automatically see the results of that coming out. So investing is all about that, having patience, having trust and faith in the process that you're following, and you will get the most out of it. So compounding is something which is very important, and that is what we get the benefit of in equity. So Albert Einstein, is said that the most powerful force is compounding. He has even called it the eighth wonder of the world. So we as finance students need to really understand that what is compounding, how much difference can it make in terms of actual creation of corpus. So a good case example is investing a 10,000 rupees a month into different options, investment options we have, and let's look at a 25 30 year period. So here we see that, say, a traditional bank FD, savings account, of course, nobody keeps the money there, a large part of money. So say even if somebody keeps it in a bank FD at 6.5% for say next 25 years, he is just growing the money of 10,000 per month to a 73 lakh number. But had he invested in equity mutual fund, which would have just delivered say a 10% or a 12%, we see that the amount of money that he could have made is multiple times of that. So 73 lakhs could have been almost like a 1.24 crores on a simple 10% return. Whereas instead of 10, if it would have given 12, it would have been almost like a 1.7 crores. So we are just talking of 10,000 rupees month, a 1,20,000 rupees a year for next few years, and it growing to a corpus as high as 1.7 crore. So that is the kind of and instead of 25, had he invested for 30 years, it could be close to 3 crores. So it's almost like a double. So another 5 years, so 20. The real benefit or effect of compounding really starts in the later stages. So 20 plus years, if you would have seen, the real benefit of compounding starts to show its effect. So again, I would request uh, to the Accountancy Association guys, to committee members, to open this chat box. So have you really understood compounding is what I would like to ask each one of you. And given a choice that, suppose if I have to ask you, I'm giving you 1 rupee, and you can invest that in a place where you will get 1 crore in a time span of 30 days. Or there is another option where you can double your money 1 rupee for every day for next 30 days. Where would you want to invest your money? So you could type in the chat box as option A or B. Uh, if also, if you all can do some calculations for those who are giving B, what kind of an amount are you looking at after 30 days? So why selecting B, and what kind of a amount that you're looking at in option B at the end of 30 days, where you're doubling your money at rupee 1 for next 30 days. Some calculations, guys. So those who are selecting option B, you know, at the end of 15 days, you would have just been at a corpus of 16,384 rupees. So are you still wanting to stick to option B, or want to change your answer and go to option A? I would still want to give you an opportunity to make that choice, whether to stick to B or go back to A. Great, great. So some students, especially from HR college, I think they are very, very bright and they want to stick to B. So at the end of 20 days, you will be having an amount close to 5.24 lakhs. Great. I'm getting some answer as 1 crore 7 lakhs. So this is the kind of corpus you would have created at the end of 30 days. It's 53 crores 68 lakh 70,912 rupees. We are talking of 1 rupee doubling every day for next 30 days. And what is the kind of corpus you could have created? After the session, I would want each one of you to, I'm sure you all are good with Excel, or even if not good with Excel, do it on a Calc if it permits, to double your money for 30 days. the kind of corpus you would have created. For those who are considered option A, of course, it was a lucrative option. 1 crore is not a small amount, but the opportunity cost you would have lost is 52 crores, 68 lakhs, 70,000. So that is the power of compounding, right? The kind of corpus that you can create is humongous, and you can't leave equity behind. So this is a live example of somebody who had invested 1 crore in 1990 in a LIC endowment plan, a fixed deposit. What kind of a return he would have got? So LIC endowment would have given 5 crores, fixed deposit say around 7 crores, gold 8, real estate would have done better. If you had just invested in the Sensex, that is the top companies, the top 30 companies, you would have grown to 34 crores. But had you invested in some of the average performing mutual funds, they have actually delivered a 23 to 25% CAGR per annum return. And the corpus you would have created is close to 200 to 300 crores. So 1 crore going to 200, 300 crores. So you would have, you know, had a very settled retired life by now, and you would have had your own capital fund or a fund to invest in a company of your choice. So that is really the power which can be created in the market by having a right investment choice. So every 2% change, you can see that, say 9% versus 12%, you would have had a 2x growth. 13 to 15%, again a 2x growth, so 19 crores would have been a differential return of 2% per annum. What kind of an impact it can create in terms of your return? So that is the kind of power, per annum return differential amount. So every penny and every return number that you're looking at will have an impact on your overall investment return that you may get. So volatility is something which can reduce with time. So people who are not into equity investing and are really scared whether I should invest into equity or not. So this is a rolling return that we have calculated for somebody who had just invested for 1 year. So there is a chance that you could have lost money if you had invested only for 1 year. But if you, instead of 1 year, had you invested for 3 years, the returns could have been much more steady, and there could be 1 out of 9 times that you could have lost money. So that's a very, very, so it's as good as going down to college or for work, and somebody meets with an accident. So those incidences are rare, right? So similar thing is with investing. So, and instead of 3, had you invested for 10 years, you would have definitely got a return of close to 15%. There is no choice, or there is no, and had you invested in the peak of the market, in spite of that, you would have got a return of more than 15% at 97% of the times. So that is the kind of a journey which one has to go through to really make the best out of equity. And we have a living legend with all of us, Mr. Warren Buffett. Even at the age of 90, he's still active, he's still making money. He started at the age of 11, but still felt it was too late for him to start. He should have started even earlier. And compounding really started working for him after the age of 65. So we can see from this table, he's the early efforts or the early days and a lot of years, so almost like a 50 plus years that he has spent into investing, he did not see the fruits of his investment really working for him. But it is only the early part, later part, late 60s, that the kind of multiplication which has happened for his wealth. So that is really possible through equity, and it's never late. The early you start, the better it is. And the last is more on retirement, because retirement is something which is not really a thing which really Indians think about in terms of planning, because we are not so advanced or as the countries in the US, where you have a separate fund or the government ensures that they will take care of your retirement needs, expenses, they will give you a regular pension. One needs to plan for themselves, and this is something which people do have savings into PPF, but we know that inflation will hit you so hard by the time you retire that the corpus that you have saved through a PPF or a FD or some other mechanism, fixed return oriented mechanism, will not help you retire or live a life that you really aspired for. and we don't want to depend on kids. The trend is really changing, and no job, we are not in a government job, somebody is not into a government job will not get a pension. So we need to, and retirement is getting very soon, right? So people want to retire at 40, 50. The trend is changing. So if you retire at 40, 50, you have an active working life, inactive working life of 20, 30 years ahead of you, and you need to beat inflation, you need to take care of your expenses. So how are you going to really do that? So there is no other choice other than equity for a person to really get into, as far as retirement is concerned. And estate planning is also something which I would just briefly tell each one of you, that each one of us has assets in some or the other form, be it an bank FD, be it a car, or be it some kind of financial asset. Most of the cases, I have seen that either people are not bothered to update their nominee, or in the bank account, or in the financial assets, or it's not talked about in the family, that okay, I'm making so and so investments, or hey son or hey daughter, I have made so and so investments for us as a family. And the parents have not informed or not updated the nominee details in the uh, financial asset, leading to a rise in unclaimed assets. So in India, to give some number, more than 30,000 crores of unclaimed assets are lying with the government. You can imagine the figure, 30,000 crores. It's the data is available. So that kind of a unclaimed asset. So even if I have invested, even if your parents have done some good investments 20 years, 30 years back, if they're not updated it right, still there's a chance you can go back, look back, track it and trace it based on your PAN number, and still claim those assets, because the government is shortly going to get away with this, because the government is not getting enough claimants for that. So we as finance professionals, or somebody who understands these basics, should ensure that at least the nominee is properly updated, and the family is aware about what investments our parents have done for us as a family. So ultimately, we are the beneficiaries of the assets that they have created. So it needs to be done in a proper manner. This is more like a recent event. So people who are scared of investing into equities, so such kind of falls have come in the past. It's not something new, but the kind of returns that have happened after such sharp falls are also equally mind blowing. So this is something more like a data point for us to understand that such crisis, COVID kind of an events may come, which may have a drastic impact on the financial market, but the returns from there will be even better. uh, a thumb rule which I would like each one of you to know, that 72, rule of 72, it's called the rule of 72, that how much time will it take for you to double your money. So 72 divided by any number, 72 divided by any number that you expect that you will generate a return on, say typically say an FD, if it gives a 6% return, you can double your money in a time span of 12 years. So as finance students, we may ask, get a question, or we may want to outsmart somebody and say that, okay, hey, how much time will you take to double your money? So it's a very simple calculation. You divide any number, 72 divided by that rate of return that you are expecting on your return, and that is the kind of time span you will take to double your money. Similar is, for 114. So 114 will tell you how much time it will take to triple. 144, how much time it will take to quadruple. So this I thought is some basic finance rule which each one of you must know. So there is no need of any kind of calculators to really understand how much time it will take. So to conclude, I would say that we must start early, invest regularly, and let compounding do its job. Don't interrupt it, and follow a disciplined approach to let your money really grow. Because from a year from now, you may feel that had you started a year earlier, you would have been better off. And success is all dependent on your efforts. So the more you work harder, the better will the results be. So I am all open for Q&A if any, and if any kind of assistance is required from my side, please feel free for any student to write an email to me, or deliver me a message, and I will respond back in the best possible manner. Thank you, and over to you guys.
So I have enabled the chat box. The attendees can ask your questions down there.
Right. So there's a question as to why the GDP went down so much this time. So see, the impact of this is clearly because of COVID, because for months together, there was no operations at various factories. So there is no industrial output or there is no growth really happening, right? So unless there is a production, unless there is an output, how do you expect the things to really start performing? So that was the real challenge for the economy, and it is not only for India, it is world over. So because of the COVID crisis, each one of us has gone through this pain, which has been very difficult for us to experience. So it is a challenge which is there globally, and it is more to do with production. So see, as far as India is placed, the GDP should be back on track very soon. The simple reason for that is, China being a major absorber as far as production is concerned. So it used to do the global level production for the world countries. So India has started getting the preference over China from most of these players, and a higher allocation of money is coming to India. So even for that matter, Apple uh, is talking of setting up a factory in Chennai, or I'm not sure if it's already set up. But that is the kind of global players. Some of the best companies of the world are looking to set up their establishments in India. So that gives a tremendous boost in terms of employment, in terms of growth that can be available to India. So, of course, 2020, 2021 as a financial year will be difficult for the Indian economy to survive. But 21-22 looks really good as far as getting back on growth is concerned, because the way India has adapted to the COVID crisis, it really shows that we will soon be on track, and we should be in a better position than what we are today. Uh, So see, the markets have already been affected. In my opinion, the worst may be even behind us, because there has been a fall of almost 48% from the peak levels of January, as far as the stock markets are concerned. And the worst may be behind us. Of course, there is still some level of uncertainty because of the U.S. elections which are lined up. So that will be some tailwinds around that. But we should soon be, because we are close to almost 10% difference from what high that was made in January. So we are not too far to get back on track. Uh, so see, as far as risk tolerance is concerned, typically, you should have a 60-40 allocation. So 60% into equity, 40% into debt. So whatever is your savings, say you have a savings of say 100. So 100 should be divided into a 60-40 combination, 60% going into equity, 40% going into debt. So that is more like a ideal combination that I frame for clients who have a low risk tolerance. And of course, if somebody has a higher appetite for risk, they can even go 80 or 100 for that matter. But of course, keeping the risk mitigants in place. Uh, So see, there are a lot of factors which are considered in terms of selecting mutual funds, right from the fund manager experience, the past track record, the number of stocks. Because it's not about selecting a particular fund, but a combination of funds, which is going to be important. Because see, large caps will play a role, but so will mid cap and small cap. You need to have a right mix of large cap, mid cap, small cap in your portfolio, which can help you outperform the market. Uh, there's another question: how do I finance my abroad college education? So, see, you can abroad for college education once you decide that okay, this is the kind of a corpus that you need for studying abroad. You need to start working on the finance companies which are available as to what kind of loan you are eligible for, and basis that you will need to really see whether you can get that amount which you need for studying overseas. So next is, how much life insurance do I need? So see, the thumb rule is that you need to have at least 10 times of what income that you are earning or contributing to the family. Say for somebody who's earning 10 lakhs, should have ideally an insurance of 1 crore. per annum, of course, 10 lakhs per annum. So a 1 crore insurance is something which one must look at. So such that that 1 crore, even if invested in a fixed deposit kind of an instrument which can give 6-7%, the family may be able to come back at that same lifestyle in times to come, and basis that they can manage the money. So that is more like a thumb rule. Of course, if there are some loans attached to that, or a person who's earning, it is better that that is also added to the uh, component of insurance or the sum assured uh, uh, policy that you take. Can you explain a little bit about derivatives? Of course, see, derivatives is something which is involved where you can do some transactions pertaining to future and options. And of course, commodity market is also something where you can do only futures. For those who are familiar with derivative market, for those who play in derivatives market, only 5% of the people who play in derivative market are successful. The rest 95% do not really succeed. So I would really tell you that it is better to be cautious as far as whenever you're trying your hands into derivative market, because derivative market, while it looks very good in terms of appealing and getting a higher return in a very short span of time, but it's really challenging to make that return, because with advancing time and technology, alcos are working. So alcos already have most of these things set into their system, which as a retail investor, when you're watching at the screen and trying to do that transaction, there is a time gap, and because of which sometimes transactions don't go and as per what you expect, and there is a leverage involved in derivatives. So suppose you are trying to do a transaction for 10 lakhs, you just need to pay a margin of 1 lakh. So that leverage excites you, but may not be in the best interest of yours. Generally, after how many years mutual fund can generate desired return? See, the ideal time frame which I say for people who are looking to invest into mutual funds, especially the equity or even a equity debt combination, 3 years is considered the least minimum time that you must give for your investment to perform. Anything above 3 years, you should definitely have a, desired return of 7-8% or a higher number. That is what, uh, in my opinion, is a reasonable time period. uh, if you're not getting that number, you may need to relook at your strategy or the choice of funds that you have made. Which is better, equity shares, mutual fund, SIP? See, like I said, in equity shares, what really happens is that the volatility is very high. So compared to a mutual fund. So if I have to put it statistically or give it a number, so as a layman, we use this terminology that, okay, risk associated here. So risk to mutual fund may be here, risk equity shares may be here. But if I have to put a number or statistically define it, risk in an equity share can be as high as 20% plus, even for a large cap share that you may have. Whereas in a mutual fund or Nifty, which is the barometer, the risk is defined as 14%. So there can be a volatility of 14% in a mutual fund vis-a-vis equity shares, which is around 22%. In a large cap, of course, if you go into mid and small, it may be much higher. Whereas in SIP, the only advantage that you get, the risk remains. The advantage is that you're staggering your investments instead of investing lump sum. What kind of long-term care insurance should I consider? See, like I said, if I'm understood right, the term insurance, I've already said that it's around 10 to 15% that one must look at. Uh, yes, so there's an interesting question as to how should I hire a financial advisor, or should I do it on my own? So see, as a finance professional, if you can do it by yourself, nothing like it. Of course, it is good to have a second opinion, because as a person who's doing this on a full-time basis, can maybe provide some extra advices to you which you may not have otherwise thought of. So it's always like, ek aur ek 11 hai. So you will get that output if somebody is there with you. But even if you feel that you're competent enough to do it by yourself, then you can do it on your own. And see, as far as some traits which you can look at in a financial advisor, in which are important in my opinion is that whether the advisor is really thinking about your needs and your goals, whether they are what is the kind of, is he explaining you about the risk also associated with your investments, because see, everyone wants the highest return from their investments that they have made, but it is also important to look at the risk associated with those investments. So most of the people don't talk about that. Third is, understanding and comprehensively guiding you on all aspects. So like I said, retirement planning, insurance planning, investment planning, isolating it into only, say that चलो आप मेरे साथ करो, investment करो, मैं आपको guide करता हूँ. So that is just taking one part of your investment. So there are much more things to be looked at. How to learn investing into equity. So see, in equity, there are multiple ways. There are a lot of YouTube videos, free lectures available, which you can read. The best way to learn is obviously watch these videos, follow a more fundamental approach to investing into equity, follow some of the best investors in India. There are a lot of good investors who regularly come on television channel. And so don't look at the target price or the what rate have they bought, whether I can buy at the same rate. It is more about the thought process that you need to understand as to what has gone behind selecting a particular share or getting into equity. So investing in a mutual fund versus a blue chip stock, again, it's about volatility. Since you're not completely ready yet, I would recommend mutual fund is much better choice compared to blue chip stock, because what happens is that a stock may not give return for years together. A classic case is Hindustan Unilever. For 10 years together, it did not give a 1 rupee or 1% return. So blue chip stock, Reliance for that matter, barring this last 1 year or 6 months rather, for 7, 8 years, it has not given any return to any client. So it's in the public domain again. So it is a very good company. It's one of the top companies in India as far as market cap is concerned, emerging company. But that is how the dynamics change. It did not deliver any return, and in the last 6 months, it's given more than 100% return. So that is the way things change as far as blue chip stock is concerned. So whether you envisage that or not is of course a question mark, and it becomes very challenging. So mutual fund is something where you can park a major part of your portfolio. Blue chip stock is somewhere where you can look at even 15-20% or some component going into that. So see, the publishing by the government for the inflation is the real figures. It is not, see, because India is a very large population, and still that large part of population is still struggling to meet their daily needs. So it is not true for you and me. It is not that the data which they are publishing is incorrect. It is not good for you and me. If you can rephrase the question, shouldn't market cap be preferred over dividend return? So if you're selecting a company, and if the question is around that should market cap be preferred over dividend return? So of course, see, the market returns, dividend returns has, may have become taxable. So it gets taxed to you at the maximum marginal rate, depending on the tax slab you're into. So the return that you, or appreciation that you can get from stock price is of course a preferred choice over dividend return. So see, planning for tomorrow while you can hardly pay for today. So that is something which we all have to really work for, right? So the needs of today have to be first met, and how you can control or manage your expenses today, such that you can have a very sustainable and a good future. We all are facing that challenge, right? It's not that that each one of you is doing very well, or each one of is you have enough savings for yourself that you can sustain for next few years. That is not the truth. That is not the truth for most of us. There are so many layoffs which have happened during the such COVID crisis, which was unexpected. So you have to really plan out how you can allocate 3 to 6 months expenses aside for such unforeseen circumstances. So that has to be planned. So you need to cut down on your expenses, have a very reasonable plan for your future, and that is how it can be done. So there is a question on inflation. So inflation cannot be controlled, right? So inflation is something which is going to, as a growing economy, inflation will keep rising, or there is a rate, like I said, around 10-12%, which has been there. So with the growing economy, the महंगाई तो बढ़ेगी ही. So it is like, growth which is going to happen. So some companies are doing very well. So that company on an average out though that, and that is how inflation gets really impacted on an individual.
So, any more questions? We'll just wait for 1 minute.
Sure, sure. Okay, so yes, of course, paying to a financial advisor or anybody who's advising you would lower your earnings, but it is the kind of value addition which you get which matters. So it is like मुझे सर्दी हुई है या मुझे बुखार है. So whether I should go to a doctor or take a home remedy which is available from your parents. So it is a choice. So a doctor may really assess whether there's a need for that kind of medicine or not, whereas doing it at home may work out in your favor. So it is more of calculated risk, not the risk, rather the value addition that you may get by having consulted somebody. So you clearly have a plan in place. So if that is something, as a finance professional, you feel that no, I can do it for myself, there is nothing wrong in that. You can do that for yourself as well, and you have that saving too. Thank you for uh, thank you, Shitij.
Okay. So, thank you so much, sir, for taking out your precious time and conducting such a good webinar. It was very informative and thought-provoking. Personally, I enjoyed it, and by looking at the responses from the attendees, I can assure you that the participants also enjoyed.
That's great.
Yeah, so I would like to end this webinar by a formal thank you speech by Meg.
Well, this lesson has certainly been a fascinating and educational one. I would like to thank Mr. Rishabh Adukia for taking out time of his busy schedule to come and educate all of us in the matters of financial planning. Our teacher in charge, Miss Anjali, and Principal Pooja Ramchandani deserve thanks as well, along with the entire team for organizing this event. President Omkar, Vice President Dhruvi, Secretary Alina, and Joint Secretary Akshata for spearheading this effort. PR heads for spreading the message. Creative heads for the online posters. Marketing and technical heads for helping us organize this event successfully. And I would also like to thank all our volunteers for ensuring this event went off without any problem. So once again, thank you all for attending this webinar.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you to all the participants for a patient listening.
Yeah, so thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. I guess we'll end the meeting now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you.